adventurers, and welcome to episode 12 of CORECAST the Corepunk podcast. I'm your host, the creator called BOAST, and with me tonight are the people's champ, Alumio, and the self-proclaimed president of Qolat, the Blue Deer, DVALIN. Alumio and DVALIN, welcome to CORECAST. Alumio, it's been it's been a wild ride over the last year, and I have to say I really appreciate you coming in and doing all the work you do on the Discord. You truly are the people's champ. You've been there from your day one, helping people out, helping the new players out, new interests out, and giving them information about the game, trying to steer them in the right direction and keep the hype and the hope alive. Alumio, welcome to CORECAST.
Well, thank you. Quite glad for being here. Thank you for inviting me. And yeah, like you said, since day one from joining the Discord, been quite active on it and being as helpful as I can be, primarily due to quite the setup that I currently have with work, where I'm able to be flexible with it and always have Discord on the second monitor. So it sort of became automatic to just have a notification and pop it over there and just check it and just quickly answer anything that I might be able to.
I love it. It's been awesome. And it's crazy because, the game's not out yet, obviously. But some people have been on the Discord for well over a year now. And most of our guests so far had been on the Discord since 2019, the glorious year. And that said, though, we've seen an influx of, I don't even know what to call the punks on the Discord, because we're not players yet, because we're not playing anything. But I guess I could say fans or people of interest at the moment. But you're the first sort of newer Discordian in the podcast, so it's great to have a fresh face, or in this case, I guess, a fresh voice, and to see your opinion on this. Because from day one, as much as Eugene loves DVALIN enough to go to his house and give him gifts, he told me that he would love to hear the opinions of others in the community. So it's great that we get to sort of be diverse in this and get some other opinions and some other looks at the stuff that we're looking at. So we finally received, oh man, this has been such anticipation for this. It's hard not to hype it up and intro it as hyped as it has been. But before we get there, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's introduce the Blue Deer DVALIN, president of Qolat, the Alanian chieftain. DVALIN, welcome to CORECAST.
Hello, and thank you. I expect you to clip in some clapping and chewing and American music. So before I enter in the stage.
American music, I love it. Very specific.
I think they're the only who has actually music for the election. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's always great to have you. I think I would go with a Rocky theme, but it's going to be on YouTube, so we want to keep it clean and YouTube friendly. So we're going to have to find some sort of Rocky theme replacement for your introduction, but we'll find something nice.
I mean, you can just like hum it like.
Wow, you're more American than I am, I think. All right.
He has practiced a lot for it.
He has been, huh? In the mirror, even he's been practicing. Guys, tonight we cover the long-awaited news drop of the now infamous DWARF, aka the Mercenary. Tonight we'll cover the class and specs. We will also take a look at the current overall popularity of the revealed classes and specializations, thanks to a couple of handy straw polls created by DVALIN. But before we get there, let's introduce Alumio. Once again, this guy is in there dropping knowledge daily in the Discord. Alumio, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found Corepunk.
Well, about myself, I guess I could start from the day I was born, but could speed it up a little just so we're not here for several hours. Uh, and just basically be that I'm 24. Uh, I moved to the UK by myself at the age of 21, and I've settled down here. And I've been a part of several gaming communities so far. Namely, in the past, I've been a Skyforge moderator on a forum. Then I moved on with my life and such. Eventually, I found out about Corepunk in pretty much the same month it was announced on with a trailer. Namely through Asmongold's reaction, which wasn't so receptive to it. I shut it off like in the back of my mind for several months until September of last year, and that's when I decided to officially get into the community and start getting involved. So that's when I consumed as many information posts as I could find. I started going through just search features on the Discord through AMAs and just dove right in headfirst into the community. And I've been extremely active ever since, basically. Even now, while we're recording this, I'm fighting the urge to go see the notifications I have on the server, and I have the several forum tabs open in the background.
Man, you really need to set like an away message, like, "Hey guys, I'm dealing with something. Someone stand in." You need like an assistant to be there when you're not. Although you're not ever there. So this is good. This is really good stuff. So you spending time in gaming communities before this, then. So this is kind of a natural fit for you, I think, in this role of the mentor. It sounds like. What was the catalyst? What was the moment in September that made you decide to focus back onto Corepunk? Was it anything in particular?
I think, namely, it was the fact that I just saw a random video on my recommendation on my recommended on YouTube, and it just popped right back into my head. And when I went to have a look at it, there you had several like new news posts. Namely, I think it had just dropped the Q2 update like 2 or 3 days ago before I checked, and I think it was just a good point to jump into it because still at the time the plan was CBT in December of that year.
Right.
So I thought that a good point there to jump in, start getting involved, see how active I can be. Then yeah, that was it pretty much.
Yeah, very cool. DVALIN, how have you been?
Well, I'm doing good, and I've known Alumio for also a bit of time. I think Alumio, you've been also seeing some of my videos for all time, right?
Yeah. Namely, I do quite remember it was like the second video, like after, because I at the time I do I did watch a lot of Asmongold's reactions, and that one, the first one that got me into it, I googled, not googled, I YouTubed the game Corepunk, and you were the first that popped up, and that's when I basically got most of my initial information from my initial big exposure to the game was through you.
Oh, I like that.
Very cool.
That's a good selling point.
We need to get an Asmongold reacts to DVALIN though. That would be a good one. Yeah.
We are supposed to ask Alumio about something.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you're awake. I know you ate a lot of cake before the podcast, so just wanted to make sure you're okay over there. You're a bit quiet.
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so next up, of course, is the traditional dream class. And so, Alumio, you're in the hot seat as the guest. and this is something that we've done every episode now, and we've seen some cool results. Of course, lately, some of the answers have been maybe a bit influenced by the characters that we are now seeing, which will be in the game. But please feel free to tell us about your dream class, what they look like, what they smell like, what kind of abilities they have, the usual dream class stuff. As far as if you could design a character for Corepunk, what would it be? How would it like, etc. How would it look like?
And please tell us how it looks.
Yeah.
How it looks. Well, unfortunately for you, DVALIN, I am a mechanics kind of guy. So look-wise, there isn't much of a strong appeal to me. As long as the mechanics are interesting and push me towards playing it, I couldn't care less how it looks visually wise. But it's funny that you ask this, and I have been spreading it around for like some time now. To like when people mention the topic of what if this was a class, etc., etc. Since some initial talks with Turpaholic on Discord, I've always since then wanted a sort of a rockstar character where each of the 3 weapon specializations would be a different instrument. And I even made in one of the off-topic forum posts on the forum, I designed a character based off of that kit-wise. And if you allow me to go into it, Boast,
Yeah,
can
please.
describe it a bit. So thematically, you'd have an electric guitar specialization, drum kit specialization, like the ones you carry, you can carry on your shoulders, like not a proper real drum kit. And then the last one being a microphone, so like sort of a vocal cord, a singer type style. So with the electric guitar, you would be sort of a fervor type character. Like the more you stick to someone, the more fervor stacks you start to accumulate, and the more the faster and the stronger you attack, until to a point where you can do a finale with the ultimate, where you consume all of your stacks, and you do sort of an execution style where if the ability kills the enemy, you get all your stacks back and you continue on that further rampant. So it sort of invokes a style, mechanically invokes a style of do you know when like usually electric guitar players would go on with like some riffs, some strong riffs, like the solos and such? It invokes, to me at least, mechanically invokes a spirit of speed and craziness. Exactly. DVALIN just posted a picture from ETC from Heroes of the Storm, and it is sort of like that vibe. It even has a power slide as well. For the drum kit, I took it on a different approach of how it behaves. It's like it has no auto attack, and it's an aura based. Aura-based, how to pronounce that?
Yeah.
An aura-based character. So instead of having mana, you would have energy, and the aura, you can toggle one of your auras up, and you would do one of 4 different things depending on which one you turn on, and it would consume your energy as you keep it online. So you'd have an offensive one, one to divert damage, one to double the natural regeneration of the resources of your team's members, and then a disruption one as your ultimate, which would be to hamper and stop your enemies from potentially doing anything skill-wise. So that it would be draws a fine line between balancing your energy usage and toggling on and off the different types of auras as seen fit to the situation. And then the last one, being the microphone, a vocal type character, to be more targeted towards an auto attack dealer, where you'd have 2 different types of pitches, like high pitch and low pitch, and you would switch between those stances. where the low pitch would give you a sort of shorter range-wise but wider, like a cone, because you would not have a normal auto attack. You would attack in a cone, like a cone of sound. So the lower pitch would give you a shorter cone but a wider one, while the higher pitch would give you a longer cone of sound but a thinner as a drawback. So when you would turn on your ultimate, you'd basically be like all inspired and such, and you would be able to create some perfect vocals where you'd have the benefits of both types of pitches. So for like an X amount of time, so you would have the distance of the high pitch and the wideness, so to say, of the low pitch. And I thought mechanically these were all quite interesting, and at least from the few reactions, like 3 or 4 people that I've seen my fan-made design have been quite excited for it as well. Some of them quite interested and would also like to see it as a thing. But yeah, that's it.
Man, I love it. We're going to link that down below wherever possible on all the platforms. Absolutely love it. Eugene Pashak, make this happen. This is very cool. It also, what I like about it is that it sounds like it has, within the 3 specializations, varying difficulty to actually
Yes.
playing them, which I also really like. Because I think that's how the specializations should potentially be, in my opinion. I don't know, that you should have one that's sort of easier for newer players to play and pick up, one that's a bit more difficult, and one that's for like more advanced players. But just an opinion. You could also have the different classes also being like that.
I agree.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I can imagine in my head. Played a lot of that Cyberpunk game. It seems like ages ago now, but there's a class in there because I got into the actually the pen and paper version, Cyberpunk Red, recently after that, and am in the process of starting a game for that with some friends of mine, and one of the classes is called Rocker Boy. And it's very much what you described. This fervor is essentially what this character does. It's not necessarily about like being like a bard, which provides strength or buffs or whatever through the sound of their music or whatever it is, but it's more of getting everyone into a frenzy so that you have this like you sort of conjure up this massive army of followers that will like do anything you say because they're so fixated on the words that you're saying and the sound of the music and the beat and all that. So that's really cool. I really like that. I think that could work well in a game, and who knows? Maybe you're the next character designer over at Artificial Core.
Would be quite interesting for sure.
Yeah, that's right. So, wow, man, DVALIN, we've never had quite the Dream Class intro like that yet from any of our other guests. And I have to say, I feel like that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm assuming that there's even more detail than that for the classes that we can find on the forums.
It is.
Yeah.
This is one of the 2 characters I made on a whim when I was inspired or feeling like it before my current project. So it goes into, while it does not have specific correct numbers, as that is hard to define without being in the game and being able to test the actual balance of it.
Right.
It has the proper descriptors, at least for this Rockstar style character, has proper descriptors of each of the skills and play style associated with it. And then for my second character, which I also made right below that one, has also descriptors of their 3 different specializations and each of skill in each specialization. although that one I did not end up adding the playstyle summary with each specialization. And just in case you might be wondering what character that is, it is a humanoid Ursine with dual rocket gauntlets. As for one, for another one, dual tower shields, and for the other one, dual electric whips. So that one I opted for the dual theme, like duality theme of weapons.
All right, really cool. Well, yeah, we'll link those in the description of the video and of the podcast itself. DVALIN, what's your take on these characters? I want to hear what you think.
Well, I give you that one. That this is probably the most detailed one we have got so far, and I feel sorry for the next person who's going to be a guest in this show.
That's right.
But because it's going to be hard to beat that one. So
That's right.
but personally, well, I just have to give my opinion, right? So I'm not a fan of musicians classes. I mean, ETC was from Heroes of Storm was like okay because it looked like the axe and he swinged it like the axe, and I like the Tauren warrior.
And sorry for interrupting you, DVALIN, but just before we go any further, do remind yourself that I'm a patron of yours, so be careful with your feedback.
That's.
I mean, of course, I love your ID. No.
Be
No.
careful what you say next.
No. I'm just saying that it's the whole idea with singing and music and so on is, I mean, I would respect the class if I saw the class in the game and I saw other players play it. I would be like, that's cool, you like the class, but I would never myself create the character. Like that's the same. No, I can't say that because we're gonna talk about that later. But there's also some classes in Corepunk where I'm like, I'm never gonna touch that, but still I respect the class. So I'm gonna respect your class, but I will probably not play it myself. Let's say it that way.
Fair enough. He's a family dad. He's,
Not much loud noises at
yeah,
all.
not much excitement, not much loud noises. His days of sex, drugs, and rock and roll are in the past. All right. That's Alumio's dream class. Up next, we're going to get into the Mercenary, the recently announced class featuring the Dwarf and the subclasses, the specializations, Sniper, Engineer, and Berserker. And then after that, we'll get into classes and specs, straw polls from DVALIN. But now it's time to go through the Mercenary. And I'm really hyped because I've told DVALIN this probably from day one, from episode 1, that in every game that has an engineer in it, I am on it. And I saw that engineer name and I got really excited. I think the Sniper and the Berserker are also interesting in what they do. And it's also interesting that in the description of the character, which I'll read in a moment, it talks about that usually mercenaries work in a trio, so that there would be one of each of these in like a squad, and they would work together. And I'm wondering if that actually is just lore, or if that would potentially carry over into like a class set bonus that you could potentially get from rocking these 3 characters together, which I think would be kind of cool as well, especially with the dwarf lovers community on the Discord that we have. It's quite strong. Coming from a cold-hearted world of eternal winter, a mercenary is not used to feeling pity. It's kill or be killed. Usually, mercenaries work as a trio. While a sniper takes out enemies from a distance, a berserker breaks through enemy ranks in a formidable onslaught covered by heavy fire from an engineer's turrets. What are your first takes on the mercenary as the final edition for the closed beta test, Alumio? Was this sort of what you expected for the mercenary and the dwarf?
So before getting into it, before the Q4 update of last year, we had the understanding through quotes and footage and such that at the time the standing would have been the shotgun sniper from the trailer that we've seen loads of footage of, well, in the trailer itself, a quote for a dual one-hand axe specialization, and a quote for a fun, interesting, I forget the exact wording, a fun, interesting sniper mechanics specialization. From out of those three, then came the Q4 update, where we saw on the background image a new specialization for the dwarf with the revolver and a wrench.
Mm-hmm.
So the community and started getting an understanding that there was a high chance that one of those original three specializations would have been removed in favor of the wrench and revolver one. To my surprise, I was not expecting the specialization where we actually had footage of to be the one to go. So, namely the shotgun one. So that to me was a surprise.
Right.
I would have thought that the interesting sniping one would have been the one to go, as it was the older quote and didn't have any footage associated with it. That said, with the reveal that we got, and to me personally, the elegance of the sniper subclass, design-wise, I'm happy that the shotgun one was the one to go. Now, if you want me to proceed to the actual three subclasses that we got, as you might have seen, I do have some bias towards the sniper subclass, even though it's not going to be the one that I'm going to be playing, as I'm going to be playing Commando Warmonger if I am able to get into closed beta. The sniper one brings a twist that we haven't had in any of the other specializations so far, namely the fact that it has no auto attack, and its version of a default way of dealing damage would be the chambering of the bullet with a W into a firing long-range shot, a skill shot from the Q.
Yeah.
That twist basically means that so far it's the only class that has the potential to zone out pre-engage scenarios where the two groups are still judging each other in the open world, the arena, whatever they're fighting. They have the potential to poke the opposing team without any resource consumption. So they don't run the risk of running out of mana. They don't run the risk of having a long cooldown and having to burn it and waiting for it. It's the first one that gives this depth of pre-engage scenario mind games, so to speak.
Yeah, interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, which I was just to finish, which explains in my mind the simplicity of the actual kit itself, mechanically wise. Like if you look at it, the W is literally just chamber around. It doesn't do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm excited for the sniper as well. I think the Berserker is on its own an interesting take on this class in comparison with the other specializations, but I think it makes sense for the dwarf as a character as well. Let's go through them and then we can talk about them further. DVALIN, before we do that though, was this what you expected from the dwarf, or were you thinking something else along the lines of what Alumio said, based on sort of the speculations from the community?
No, so I definitely, what you can say, I was expecting us to get something close to what we saw in the trailer with the gun and maybe some buffs and so on. But like reading between the lines and like fingers crossed, I really hoped that I would be able to play. I know I wish a lot, and Eugene, don't listen to me because else I'm gonna ruin the game. But I really wished that I could be my Lord of the Rings lore fan here, and play a dwarf with a huge shield and an axe or mace, and like ride on a boa and ride into war and yell something as for Gondor. I can still do that since the Berserker is the closest to that, but I still really hope to be that tower shield as a dwarf, because my name DVALIN comes also from the Hobbit. It also comes from Norse mythology of a dwarf, so it makes sense for me as a person who calls himself DVALIN to play the dwarf, because it's very close to the lore. But I don't find a spec on the mercenary that I actually enjoy reading about.
All right. Well, I'll stick with Alumio this conversation, and you can go back to eating your cake.
I'll do that.
Don't mess with our dwarf, DVALIN. Come on now. Let's go through these one by one. First and foremost, we have the sniper, a master of disguise. A sniper doesn't give enemies a chance to get close nor to survive. When faced with snipers on the battlefield, all of their victims usually manage to glimpse before their death is a muzzle flash. Snipers are extremely foresightful, and with pinpoint accuracy, they know exactly how much time they need to reload or chamber a round. Each shot must kill or severely injure an enemy, reducing their movement speed. The price they pay for any mistake may be their lives. When sniper meets an extremely dangerous enemy, they use magnum rounds. So it sounds from that, it's a high risk, high reward class, which makes sense. On the Q, a sniper fires in a target direction, dealing physical dexterity damage to the first enemy hit. Hitting a target reduces their armor for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Additional effects from magnum rounds. The shot damages all enemies it hits on its path, slowing them. And they do provide additional details for each of these with the cast time, range in meters, damage numbers, and armor reduction numbers as well. As Alumio pointed out, W is a sniper chambers around. This ability can be cast while sniper is moving. A sniper's attack speed reduces the cast time of the ability. On the E, a sniper aims and fires at an enemy, dealing physical attack power damage. The cooldown resets on an enemy kill, and there are additional effects from magnum rounds. The ability always deals critical damage. And the R is a sniper loads a magazine of magnum rounds. Shots gain additional effect for 10 seconds. So you can already get an idea of the rotation of these abilities. And how this character would be played. Is this interesting to you, Alumio? I realize you mentioned the class that you want to play, but does the sniper interest you as a potential secondary class or so?
It does. It was my, I would say, second to third, one of those two, behind Commando, and in basically in competition with the Hand of the Light spec from Paladin. And I've mentioned this already, like just the simple elegance of simplicity that it has design-wise, and the room, in my opinion, in my eyes, for skill. So like it has a very low skill floor, in my opinion, very low entry, simple to pick up and play to potential okay state, and a very, very high ceiling in my mind. Of course, not good in like every single scenario, but so in the hands of someone with very good foresight and aiming skills for the skill shot, namely the Q, a very dangerous class to me.
Yeah, indeed. Also worth mentioning in the special ability section, if the sniper stands still for 3 seconds, they become invisible. As soon as they move or cast an ability, the invisibility effect ends, and using the Q and E ability grants bonus movement speed. Yeah.
Also, you can activate your special ability to place down a tracking totem, which is sort of a comparison to like a ward in League of Legends, where it will reveal a small area within the fog of war.
Yeah.
in my mind, this is more so that you can play the kit in itself, the sniper class in itself, to its full capacity, since it is the class with the highest range, both in the Q and E, compared to the other specializations. And I believe they added the ward to its kit primarily due to there being a lot of areas in the open world, dungeons, etc., where you would not be able to see that far into the fog of war to be able to take advantage of the big range that you have.
Yeah, it's really cool. It says tracking totem. Does that make it sound like you could potentially stick it to someone as well, or do you think it's just going to be a static totem like you mentioned, like a ward?
I believe that's just. I could be completely wrong, but to me, it just screams out like a thematic flavor type thing, because being the ability to stick it to someone would be too big of a change to not mention it as a feature on the ability.
Fair enough. So more of like how it looks. It looks like some spy
Yeah,
device with like a
basically.
beeping light or something on it, like a flashing light. Fair enough. Next
Ju-
up. Oh,
Well, just a quick note on that one.
sure. What do you
Because
got?
I actually don't know if that was you saying that, Alumio, but I saw a lot of people. I've seen multiple people saying this. That basically every other class in the game plays like League of Legends, except
Yeah,
the sniper. He plays like it's battle right.
yeah, I did that that quote while, and this is in referral to the fact of the sniper not having a basic attack in its default way of dealing damage. Its quote-unquote basic attack being the W into Q combo, and spamming that over and over as the cooldowns allow. So it's the twist of sniper is playing battle right, where he has to aim every single thing, namely primarily his default way of dealing damage, has to aim it, while everyone else has higher cooldowns and such, so there will be auto-attacking a lot, which they will be playing League of Legends, where they'll be right-clicking on the enemy and just doing some default attacks automatically.
Yeah, that was a really cool game.
Battle right?
Yeah, battle right. It was so cool until they shut down the servers.
Yeah, well, you stopped playing, DVALIN. You were holding it together.
Yeah,
It's your fault. Next up is the engineer. My personal favorite, and I think it's going to stay that way with their take on the engineer as well. We'll see. I'm still I still have some loves in some other classes as well. But the engineer is a technical master that can assemble a turret that fires a barrage of bullets, dealing damage to enemies. If an enemy dares to approach an engineer in a melee fight, they'll either take a wrench to the head or be shot with a revolver at point-blank range. Each successful attack grants engineers combo points, which empowers their later attacks. The Q, if cast on an enemy, an engineer fires at the target, dealing physical attack power damage. Every combo point increases the damage the ability deals by 10%. At maximum combo points of critical damage, the ability deals by 50%. If cast on a turret, an engineer remotely buffs a turret. Its next 3 shots deal 10% spell power, more damage. Every combo point increases the buff turret's damage by 5% and the number of empowered shots by 1. At maximum combo points, the turret's attack range is also increased. An engineer places a turret, automatic turret with W, that deals magic damage of spell power to all enemies in front of it. If there's another turret nearby, the turret connects to it, creating an electric beam that reduces enemies' movement speeds by 40% and increases allies' movement speed by 30%. When placed, turrets have a durability level of 2 out of a maximum of 4. A turret's durability level increases over time when it is damaged by enemies' basic attacks. Each durability level increases the damage the turret deals by 15. The turret is destroyed when its durability level reaches 0. The E, if cast on an enemy, an engineer delivers a powerful blow to the target, dealing physical attack power damage and stunning the target for 2 seconds. That's with the wrench. If cast on a turret, an engineer hits the turret, causing it to generate an electrical pulse. Pulse deals magic damage and slows enemies within a short range from the turret and increases the turret's attack speed for 5 seconds. And this generates 2 combo points. Next up is the R ability. An engineer gains maximum combo points and a shield equal to 20% spell power from maximum engineer's health. For the next 7 seconds, an engineer generates twice as many combo points. And their special ability, a turret's durability level increased by 1 when an engineer basic attacks it. A turret is surrounded by an aura that grants an engineer bonus armor and resistance, and basic attack generates a combo point. What do you think, Alumio?
In my opinion, and before going deeper into it, my assumption for the engineer relies on the fact that on the assumption that you won't be able to get attack power and spell power at a good amount, good values together in the same artifact frequently enough. So with that in mind, to me, the engineer, you can go down one of 2 paths. You can go down the spell power path, where you basically put emphasis as much as you can on dealing damage with your directional turrets and trying to kill the enemy from afar before he comes to you, and doing some defense setups based on the terrain you're in to allow the enemy to not get close, as if he does get close, the directional towers won't be able to shoot him if they get behind the turrets, pardon. So that's that playstyle in itself. And then the other avenue would be an attack power focused, a revolver build, in where your ranged poke would be not the greatest thing. Like, your turrets would just provide a little extra damage, but wouldn't be the main way of you dealing with your enemies. That main way would be for them to get close to you, and you would utilize the grid between the 2 turrets for increased movement speed to yourself and slow to the enemy. The passive aura around the turrets for more resistances to yourself, and combining the auto-attacking turrets and using other abilities to get combo points to be able to shoot them with the revolver with your Q for the attack damage ratio, and then alternating your E between a stun and hitting the turrets themselves for slow in case you need it, but primarily for the stun. That leaves your ultimate to be better for the spell power build, since he only has a spell power ratio. But that, in my mind, is justified by the fact that you on a spell power build would not be very good on yourself. So if they got past your turrets, you would be pretty defenseless, not being able to deal too much damage. So you would need a big shield to be able to withstand some initial rotation of skills from the enemy, while being an attack power based build, you'd have higher ratios on your higher damage on your revolver and your stun, and you yourself, your auto attacks would deal an increased amount of damage. So giving a big shield to you in that situation would be too much at that point.
Yep.
And that's it. Yeah, that's my view of the engineer.
Yeah, that's cool. Always my problem with engineers is I love the idea of turrets and placing turrets, but they're always just so easily focused and destroyed by the enemy in so many games that I've played. So I want to see how they're able to balance that, and that does speak to your point of whether you focus on yourself or you actually focus on your gear, rather, based on those 2 different powers. So yeah, that's interesting. I love that you've looked into it and sort of started calculating the numbers and what the different builds could look like.
And to
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, it's
It's
forgetting
okay.
it. To also to add to your worry of potentially your turret getting easily killed, to me from description that we get, it sounds like the only way for you to damage a turret would be through auto attacking it. So you wouldn't be able to poke it down with spells, as they don't actually have a proper health bar, like as in a usual normal health bar. They have like the durability bar,
Right.
where one hit, one auto attack removes one durability, one from an enemy, one auto attack from you at the turret adds a durability. So there is a room of like running around the turret, like ring around the rosy, where
Right. Right.
they're chasing after you, trying to kill the turret, and you're hitting the turret as well and bringing its health back up, so it never dies. So there's a possibility for that as well, predominantly in the attack power build, in my view. So you can keep the resistances up.
Yeah, I like that
Longer.
much better. In Guild Wars 2, when they would just come in and just like splash damage the turrets away immediately, it was like, okay, well, why did I even bother? You know, I want to avoid moments like that in the game, and it sounds like there's a chance to do that. But it also creates a funny image of my mind of the two enemies running around the turrets together and just poking at them back and forth. Okay, fair enough. DVALIN, what about the engineer in your mind?
Well,
Is this okay if I have a class that I like? Is that all right with you?
well, now that you ask, it's not all who wander are lost.
Yeah.
Just saying.
All right.
That was a quote from Gandalf, by the way. Well, when I saw the engineers build, the first thing I was thinking about was tower defense. But I actually see the spec being quite handy. Imagine we're getting a battleground, a PvP battleground like Capture the Flag with 2 bases. I can see the engineering as a really cool defender, because
I
you
agree.
have, yeah, I mean, you have the time to like set up the turrets, like prepare stuff and all that. And when they attack the base and try to take the flag, you will be there, you'll beat their asses, or else you're gonna stun them with your hammer. You have I was about to say the spell name, but that's the funny thing about these reveals. They don't show the spell names on these previews. That's kind of fun. It's just the E spell, so you're gonna E spell them.
Yeah, that's right.
And to add on to that, I think they did confirm in an MAA that one of the battlegrounds mode would be capture the point. So that would be like the strongest situation, like scenario for it. You just settle down your you set down your defenses on the point and just hold it there. You can have like a squad of engineers just anchoring down the point.
Yeah, and imagine they're saying, "Oh, they took our flag. They're going this way." Then you have 2 engineers going over there, planting the turrets at the door. The flag runs out, and you just like. So I like the class, and both are. It's really cool that you get a class that you like. I'm glad for you.
Thank you. Finally. This is what I've been waiting for over a year now.
Well, I'm just, Eugene. Well, if it was his account, he told me on YouTube, one of the comments, that I would get a 2-handed tank. We haven't seen that so far, so I'm still waiting on my class.
Yeah, fair enough. You'll get it. No, don't know when, but you'll get it. Next up is the Berserker. Berserkers fiercely rush into the midst of a battle, using their battle axes to split open the skulls of those unlucky enough to be on the wrong side. Fueled by battle, Berserkers' rage grows with each strike, enabling them to deal additional damage to their opponents. And the Q ability, a Berserker throws an axe at a target location, dealing physical attack power damage to all enemies it passes through. It also slows them. A Berserker can pick up a thrown axe to reduce the ability's cooldown by 3 seconds. The damage the ability deals is increased by 20% if Berserker's rage is greater than or equal to 50. The W ability is a Berserker's attack speed is increased by 100 for the next 4 basic attacks. The fourth basic attack deals additional physical attack power damage. The ability causes an enemy to bleed, strength, if Berserker's rage is greater than or equal to 50. A Berserker leaps into the target area with E, stunning all enemies in the area for 1 second and dealing physical damage based on dexterity. The leap generates 25 rage. The R ability, a Berserker unleashes their rage, increasing their attack speed by 20% via dexterity and damage dealt by 30% via strength. While the ability is active, a Berserker gains twice as much rage. The special ability, a Berserker's basic attacks generates 7 rage, critical damage generates 14 rage. A Berserker has 20% chance to land an additional hit on a target after a basic attack, and a Berserker gains 0 to 100 bonus attack power based on their missing health. All right, that's the Berserker. What do you guys think?
Would you like to start this time, DVALIN?
Yeah, DVALIN, get in here.
Well, okay, I'm gonna be honest. If I played the mercenary, this would be my go-to spec. The only thing that I kinda dislike about the spec is that it's a very heavy auto attack. It's really heavy on auto attack. I know you have the throw axe, but I don't think it's gonna really be your main damage spell. You have this buff on W, you have the buff on R, you have the leap on E, so you can always chase your enemy, you can always get them out of range, but when you're close to them, it's just about buffs. So if you like auto attack and just like click on your target and lean back and say, okay, you got it, Timo, then I guess it's fine. But if you like to be that person like the Soul Eater, the upper class, it's much more like dodging, like jumping around, using spells all the time. This one seems like, yeah, it's gonna be that guy in the raid who just puts on his buff, stand up, next to the boss and just like right click on the boss and like being a top damage meter, and it's like, I did my part. You get it right?
Yeah, I got you.
It's more of run you down type of playstyle than actively trying to counter any interaction, any counter action from the opposing enemy. It's they just turn everything on. If you get close, you just run them over and you melt them, and then you move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know if you want to say something first, Boast, or if you want to move on to me now. My take on the Berserker.
No, I think it's I think it's interesting that it's got two abilities that are very similar, which is what stood out in when I was reading it. And maybe Alumio, you could after you've or maybe before, however you please, how after or before you speak to what you want to speak to on the character. But with the W and the R, the attack speed is increased, and there's increased damage as well. So I guess maybe take a look at that and maybe explain to me why you think it's significant to have these two abilities, and sort of what differentiates them between each other. Because I think someone looking at this class is going to see that it looks pretty kind of flat, I guess, to DVALIN's point, in that it's just kind of rinse and repeat, pop a buff, steamroll, and then rinse and repeat. So go ahead.
In my point, when I theorize classes in my head, I tend to do them to place them in 1v1 scenarios, because in a 1v1 scenario, you don't have. I know it is not a proper way of testing it, because the majority of the times you're not going to be in 1v1 scenarios unless you are in an arena specially designed for it. But in 1v1 scenarios, you do not have any teammates to cover weaknesses that the kit itself has. So you can effectively compare or theorize how they would perform against each other. In my mind, the Berserker to me is in the same sort of like play style type as the Shaman, where they are a melee DPS that might have some issues catching you, but if they do, they melt you like quite quickly. The Shaman, through the interactions of his Q to reduce your resistances, both resistances, physical and magical, and his combo potential with his wolf and all the interactions in between them. And then for the Berserker side of things, being sort of a bulldozer force to be reckoned with, where you have barely any catching power. Most ranged characters, most ranged classes with at least one escape ability or one disengage ability, or to pull you off of them, in my mind, has a good chance in a 1v1 scenario, mainly because your only way of catching people is your jump, which is your only gap closer, and potential slow from your Q. Now, the problem with your Q comes from costing 25 rage, and the only way of you generating rage being auto-attacking through auto-attacks and using your E as your jump itself gives you 25 rage. So just taking damage itself does not provide you with the resource that you need to be able to throw your axe to slowly catch up to someone. So if you jump on your enemy and they disengage off of you through either a knockback or the jump of themselves, you're basically there, you're doomed. So to my mind, it's heavily dependent in what sort of mobility you can get out of the artifacts. What type of mobility skills can you get, or how high can you get your movement speed stats to be able to catch up to people, to the ranged classes specifically. Because in against melee classes, just the fact of itself, the longer the fight goes, the more dangerous you are. As you gain more and more attack power, the lower health you are, and you basically are always generating rage. Your cooldowns are rather low, like 7 seconds in the Q if you grab it. If you grab the axe from the ground, 8 seconds on the W. And steroid-wise, you got attack speed. Steroid-wise, you got very good steroids. Your W is basically 100% attack speed for the next 4 hits. That's quite good because not only does it deal additional damage on the W, so your W auto attacks deal additional damage. The more damage you have yourself as a base through your passive of less health and through your stats from the artifacts, you're basically hitting 4 chunky auto attacks right there for some big potential damage. And then you have the bleed as well on top of it, if you have a 50 or more rage. And your ultimate, your attack speed steroid from the ultimate, and your damage dealt steroid from the ultimate, both scale attack speed with dexterity and attack damage with strength, which, in my opinion, strength as the main stat will sort of convert itself into attack damage. So you would be wanting to get strength regardless. So while it does not have as much attack speed as Shaman, each hit that you do, and the longer the fight goes, you're basically taking blocks of health from someone with each auto attack, and it's attacking extremely quickly. And you also have on the passive the 20% chance of landing an additional hit on a target after a basic attack, and this will be very beneficial depending on how they calculate this percentage. If it's a pseudo RNG, like they do in Dota, I believe, or if it's pure RNG. So if it's only with every hit you have a 20% chance of hitting it, then it's going to be so-so. It's going to be RNG reliant. If you're doing pseudo RNG, where after the first hit, on the first hit you have a 20% chance. If you fail, you get a 40% chance on the second hit, so on and so on, until you basically have 100% chance of hitting that extra attack. So it does really become 1 in 5 of you hitting that, of triggering that ability. So that's dependent there of what to do. But yeah, I think I've gone like deep enough in what my mind theorizes about this to not drag on, because I could potentially drag on more than
Uh,
I am now. But I think this like sort of gives you potentially an understanding of what goes on in my mind regarding this.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I love the breakdown. I really appreciate it. Um, it's it's really cool to have it broken down like that. I'm not sure what your interests are in content creation for this game in the future, but I think on like real high level and a I think on a more advanced level of taking your play from sort of like the what you can get out of it at a base level and taking it to the next level where you're able to succeed in harder fights against players. I think the like a breakdown like this would be, in my opinion, super helpful and super welcome for these because I love seeing this breakdown and how it kind of twists and turns through all the combinations of these abilities together, and it's a nice fresh take on it. I appreciate that you could probably talk all night about this stuff. I think that's really cool. But in the meantime, yeah, I think it's a good start as a breakdown for what it means to play this character and what it means to be with this character in an engagement and what it will take on top of just the character at its base stats to get it to a place where you'll be able to survive the scenarios that you were just speaking to, because it does have some pretty long cooldowns in those abilities. And I guess it makes sense because you're talking about like massive chunks of damage that it's taking out when you start chaining these abilities together.
For sure.
I'm just gonna say, Alumio, if you ever seek a little side job, you're very welcome to be a deep down class guide on my channel.
Oh, maybe I'll take you up on that offer. We'll see.
Damn. Forging relationships here on CORECAST. Although you guys have had something cooking for a while, it sounds like. He is a patron after all, DVALIN.
Yeah.
Guys, that's the long-awaited and heavily anticipated Mercenary. Any last takes on that? Any last bits of conversation?
I can't wait to see a berserker with a cigar that we see on the dwarf in the trailer.
Yeah, that would be great. The cigar never leaves his mouth, never drops it, never goes out. That's right. I love it. Guys, that's been the Mercenary, the Dwarf, Sniper, Engineer, Berserker, and a little bit of conversation on those specializations and what it could mean. I'm still torn. I'm definitely going to take a look at the Engineer and see how viable that is for how I want to play. But I do have my eyes on a couple other classes as well. Speaking of which, that brings us to the next topic of the night. Classes and specializations straw polls brought to you by DVALIN. And I'm going to share these for those of you watching on YouTube right now. Starting with the which hero will you be maining in Corepunk so far? So far is a good point. There will be more classes, more heroes. But what I do appreciate, DVALIN, is that you waited until we had all of the current heroes. Some people were getting a bit impatient with this and didn't want to include the poor dwarf in there, but it needed to be done. And I have to say, the mercenary did rank up there, at least not last. So let's get into that, starting with which hero will you be maining in Corepunk. These are the classes. And there were a total of 246 votes. So that's no small poll in relation to the size, I would say, of the community, of the active community, and in comparison to some, quick polls that people whip up trying to get opinions on something. So 246 votes, and the votes are in. The number one hero that people will be maining with a total of 55 votes is the Pain Reaper. In second place with 42 votes is the Bomber. 40 votes in third place is the Warmonger. And just one vote lower at 39 votes is the Mercenary, followed by the Paladin at 38 votes and the Champion at 32. Guys, DVALIN, you put this together. What did you want to see from this? And what were the results expected in your opinion? And what is your take on the results that we saw so far?
See, so actually the reason for why I did one of these polls was to see that if the class I am planning to play, is it going to be one of the most popular? Because one of the classes I like to play in, for example, World of Warcraft is one of the most popular ones. For example, either a Paladin or Druid. And everyone plays a Paladin or Druid. It feels like that. So it's like you always see the same class as you. But I really love to play a class that is unique. So I really hoped that the class I wanted to play is one of the least voted on this list because I like to be a bit unique. And I must say that it was actually a pretty good vote because I am definitely going to main a Paladin in Corepunk so far. You know, I want to see the next 6 classes if I'm going to get the two-handed tank. But so far, I'm going to main the Paladin, which is on number 4th place. And I kind of still feel like that's still a pretty unique one. So it's not going to be the class that everyone sees in the city. It's going to be, oh, that's a Paladin over there.
All right, fair enough. So you got your wish.
I got it.
And did you think the results would be like this?
No, I didn't. I didn't think that the Pain Reaper and Bomber. I actually thought Bomber and Champion would be number 1, but I didn't see Pain Reaper being number 1. But I kind of understand it since it got the Fire Mage spec and it got the Rogue spec, and everyone loves a Rogue spec, so definitely why. But I definitely you can say the reason for why Pain Reaper and Bomber isn't top because both of them have a Rogue spec, and solo players like Sebastian, he's a lone wolf, as he say. He only wants to play rogues because he just want to be going around randomly and killing people because he thinks it's funny, and that is why people is going for Pain Reaper and Bomber because they have the rogue specs, they have the gank specs, so they can run around and make your life sad.
Yeah, fair enough.
And adding on to this as well, another reason in my mind, the Pain Reaper being as high as it is that it's currently the only character / hero that has a specialization that plays into the mage fantasy with the pyromancer, like the actual look and theme around it.
Yeah, fair point. It's significantly higher than the rest. There's just 10 votes separating Bomber and Champion at the bottom, but 23 votes separating Pain Reaper and the Champion. I expected the Bomber to be up there. Wasn't sure about Pain Reaper, but it makes sense. Looking at the scantily clad, bondage-based character that was provided. I'm just teasing. Surely, I would say that to DVALIN's point as well, especially when first playing the game and getting a feel for the game, those rogue specs are going to be very popular. Warmonger, then Mercenary, Paladin, and Champion rounding it out. That said, even with 23 votes separating Champion and Pain Reaper, I would say that, if you look at the results in the pie chart, which is next to it. This paints the best picture of how close all these votes are. There's not a lot of separation with these votes, and so I think they're onto something with these classes as far as the community goes. And there's a little something in there for everyone, it seems like. Anything else on the hero mains, guys?
No.
Not quite all right as well.
All right.
Before you start on the next one, I just want to give a shout out to Monkey because he, I mean, in the Guild Blue Bambis, we were kind of talking about making this the number 2 poll to see which spec people wanted to do. So we were just talking about it, and like a bit seconds after that, Monkey, he already had made it for me. He already put it in all the classes and specs, so I could basically just take the honor and share it and say, here, I have it done. So I just wanted to shout out to Monkey because he actually used the minutes on creating the second poll for me.
All right, fair enough. So it gets interesting though when we get into the what specialization will you play for the first CBT.
Oh yeah.
As you put it, it gets a bit interesting because if you look at it all together, there's some Pain Reaper and some Bomber at the very bottom. But let's go through it. At the very top with 24 votes is the Bomber Blast Medic. And that's not even your rogue class, right? That's the Infiltrator is the rogue class, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah.
And that's the Infiltrator is about halfway down the list. So this gets pretty interesting. So at the top with 24 votes, Bomber, Blast Medic with 23 votes, the Warmonger Shaman. Then at 22 votes, you have Pain Reaper, Soul Eater, Mercenary Sniper with 20 votes, Mercenary Engineer with 18 votes, Champion with 17. Champion Destroyer with 17, Paladin Crusader with 16, Bomber Infiltrator with 14, Champion Ranger with 14, Pain Reaper Pyromancer with 12, Warmonger Legionary with 11, Champion Defender with 11, a Mercenary Berserker with 10, Pain Reaper Warlock with 10, Paladin Hand of Light with 10, Warmonger Commando with 9, and Bomber Grenadier with 9. Now, these two polls were created independently of each other and they were voted on independently of each other, correct?
Yeah.
Because just from a first glance, like the numbers don't add up to me exactly as far as the comparison between the two polls. This one also had more votes in it, 261 votes, but I guess that makes sense. Considering there's more specializations, but it's not a 1-to-1 in the polls. So that's an interesting thing I think to point out. It's not 1-to-1 voted on the which hero and then voted on the specialization as well. Alumio, you've taken a look at this?
Yes, I have. And I think an important thing to state, even though, of course, we already know that the sample size that we're currently using here of 260 something is anecdotal at best.
Fair
it
enough.
does show, I suppose, an early interest from the active community side of things that we currently have for Corepunk, like in the Discord and such. But one important thing in my mind to point out is that these results are also, namely Blast Medic being number 1, also due primarily to the damage dealer options being diluted. So if you do take it into consideration, someone that wants to play a support healer style only has effectively 3 options, being Blast Medic, Cleric, or Warlock if they want to heal. So while a damage dealer has, I don't know, on the top of my head, like at least 10 options. So this dilutes down the results and causes, it's why the Blast Medic is primarily number 1, in my mind at least.
Yeah, that's a very, very fair point. it would be interesting to see these broken up also. Oh, I guess it's kind of already done that. But to do polls for each of the subclasses of the specializations, from damage dealer to medic and so on. DVALIN was was this sort of what you expected, or was it just kind of too big of a list to really kind of place this in your head what these results would be like?
No, I mean, the outcome would be to see if the spec that I actually wanted to play is going to be the most popular tank or not.
Yeah.
And it seems like I am going to play the most popular tank spec. So that's of course a negative thing for me, but of course that's a cool thing that just shows that the Paladin tank is having the spec. The Paladin has the coolest tank spec since it's the first one, because Legionary Warmonger is very long down and Champion Defender is also very long down. So it looks like I'm going to share the Paladin tank with other Paladins. But I am pretty impressed over that the Shaman is number 2, but I think that is because it is the only class so far which has pets. I know the Engineer has turrets, but that's not a pet. It's, the Shaman has the Wolf, and I think that's the reason for why the Shaman is so popular, because it has a pet.
I agree on that as well.
Fair point. Again, if you look at the pie chart, which I think it's really fascinating to me how little separation there is with these. I think it's really cool. There's no one that just is really like head above the rest as far as these polls go. So that's pretty cool take. And to Alumio's point, this is a small set that were polled, but at the same time, it's still interesting to see it here. As far as mine, Infiltrator, Grenadier is down at the very bottom. Alumio, can you talk about that? Because I actually, I've had my eyes on the Grenadier along with the Infiltrator and now the Engineer as well.
If you just give me 1 second, because I do need a quick look at exactly
Sure.
what the section is, because I do. Okay, so with this, one of my thoughts is that basically your ultimate isn't very captivating. Like, that's one of the things that it's just I say this quote unquote just a cooldown reset for your Q, W, and E, and namely potentially the special ability as well. So it doesn't, at first glance value, doesn't look that interesting. But and before the but, another observation of mine, at least, is that you effectively don't have mobility on yourself. You don't have a way to jump away, a way to dash away. You resort, you're reliant on disengaging the enemy off of you with one knockback, namely from your Q. It does fill a mage, sort of like a spell damage role, where you need to hit your skill shots to deal damage. You need to stack up your special ability, like the little bombs on the enemies that stick to them when you hit a skill.
Yeah.
The fact that you need to reliably hit your E over and over to stack up its spell power buff, that stacks up at like 5 times, and that itself gives you 15 times 5 bonus spell power if you have max stacks. Which, while we don't have a reference, an in-game reference to compare if that's too much, if that's high or low, in my mind, in theory, I believe it's a decently sized amount of extra spell power for you to just suddenly detonate with your special ability all the little mines that are stuck to the enemies you hit, to deal magic damage based off of that. of spell power you have. So it has potential. It's one of those classes where you set up, you hit several things and set up one big execution style. Also, due to the fact that if you hit more than one person with a skill, all those players that got hit are going to get one of your mind stacks on them from your special skill. So if you do hit several people together and then detonate your special ability, that's going to be a nuke in each of them, because it's not restricted to only having stacks of your little mini bombs on one player. Now, that concept is interesting to me, but due to the earlier 2 points that I brought up, I can see the lack of interest on this type of character, because this is, to me, specifically targeted to like mage players, but it's an unusual mage style, an unusual mage theme, because effectively you're a guy with a gun more than anything. You're not your typical mage fantasy. So that can play out to the results that we see here, but like we said, it's an anecdotal, I don't even know how to pronounce that, sample size. So for all we know, it could be the most popular class.
Yeah, fair enough. And thanks for the breakdown. I appreciate it, because yeah, this is a class that caught my eye early, and I think all of these are gonna really need to be played to really feel if it's something for you. But I will still check it out. It's definitely in one of my, I would say, top 5.
And I think I do one last thing is that severely underrated is the collaboration with, like, the supportiveness of this Grenadier spec with namely long cast characters. So potentially the Pyromancer, because your mine, your sticky bomb, your W, if targeted on an ally or exploded upon an ally, gives them ability haste, which theorizing common sense wise from the description means that it reduces cast times.
Yeah.
So the Pyromancer, for example, has like a big cast time on his ultimate, his Meteor, because it is a massive nuke with good range, like wide range. So just the fact of being able to speed that up can catch people by surprise, in my opinion, or other specs that have long cast times, because I can't remember off the top of my head, because your default thinking would be, this is going to take a while to hit me, and all of a sudden it comes out instantly, or something like that, depending on the ratios of the ability haste.
Right, I love it. That's going to be particularly exciting to see in like arenas and battlegrounds, and when the sort of competitive nature of this picks up, and players are working together for those absolute wombo combos. I can't wait to see that in the game. DVALIN, any surprises for you in this?
And you still talking about the poll?
Yeah, were you feeding the sheep or did you fall asleep?
Yeah, I probably fall asleep the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, we're talking about the poll. Any surprises in the poll for you?
Well, let me say it in that way. I am pretty amazed that the warmonger, not the warmonger, the champion. I am pretty amazed the champion ranger is so low, because it is basically the only bow spec we have. And there is so many hunter fans out there, Legolas fans, elf fans, and basically ranger is the only bow spec in the game, and it seems like no one really wants to play. I mean, it's in the middle of the poll, so it's not that unpopular. But I'm just amazed how long down it is. I mean, we all know someone who likes to play with a bow.
All right, fair enough.
I think a factor in that, and sorry for interrupting, Boast. I think a factor in that is the extreme novelty in a lot of other classes and other specializations, while the ranger is a more typical representation of how a ranger is in other games, and even the skill set it has is just a typical ranger skill set. So it has the jump back and shoot a volley of arrows while you're jumping back, the shoot a circle of falling arrows. It's something more seen. It's something seen in a lot more other other games. While some of these specializations, so something like I don't know, at the top of my head, for example, the sniper or the Soul Eater chain and its passive for reducing cooldown for the people if they catch souls off the ground, that type of thing, it's unusual, not as common to see compared to a ranger with the vanilla kit.
Yeah, fair points. I think you just drop in too much knowledge for DVALIN Alumio. This is like the stuff of dreams to him.
Yeah, you know, when you've been in work and you've been playing with your kids, and then Alumio come here and is like acting like a school teacher, then I'm falling behind.
I think
have
most
that
people,
effect.
yeah, well, most people are listening to Sheep to go to sleep. DVALIN is listening to COREPunk stats being read. I think that's his nighty night time.
I am going to use this episode as my night time now. No, that's harsh against you. Sorry.
Jeez.
I just wanted to end the poll one with saying one thing about the paladin, which is the cleric, and the cleric is definitely the it's very long down. You know, I always saw this fantasy as the cleric as this is kind of the closest we get to a holy paladin, a healer, and it's basically at the bottom, almost at the bottom of the chart. I'm really impressed that no one wants to be this holy paladin guy. I mean, it's normally seems like it's a very popular holy healing, but I think the twist here is the reason for why people they don't want to play the cleric is because it's a dual mace spec. So basically, you have two maces, you have to attack, and then you heal everyone around you. I think people they wanted actually, you know, a paladin with the, you know, the holy book, and then standing behind everyone and casting holy shocks out with his magic from the book. Do you feel me on this one?
Yeah, the more traditional way of representing a cleric in most game scenarios being the backline defenseless cleric that needs to be protected, that just shouts words of light at you and blessings. While in here we got the more unusual, while still used before in other scenarios, in other games, the battle cleric style of taking things into its own hands and being in the thick of things, and by being in the thick of things, becoming useful, a lot more useful than being stranded in the back line.
There you have it, DVALIN.
Yeah. But else, I'm good. A nice list. I hope more people after this podcast is going to go in and both please leave the link for the poll in there, because then we can maybe get even more people in and click on it, and maybe we're gonna get 1,000 of votes on it, and it's gonna look totally different.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. I will link these in the description along with the video posting in the Discord. Alumio, for your new fans and any old ones, where can they find you on the internet?
Outside of the Corepunk Discord, please don't find me outside. I'm fine. Just stick to, if you need me, if you need my help, if you want to talk to me, just reach out to me on the official Discord of Corepunk. I'll probably be there a lot for a long time. So I'll probably catch you there if you do shout my name. Outside of that, I don't really exist socially, either YouTube or Facebook or any other thing. So that, yeah, pretty much that.
All right, fair enough. And that's where you'll find Alumio. DVALIN, where can the people find you?
they can find me on YouTube, and if they go to youtube.com/DVALINDK, they can find me. And don't worry, guys, I will hire Alumio as one of my deep class tech guys, so you can probably in the future find his videos on my channel.
I love it. I love it. The future is now. Corepunk is coming up on a closed beta, the first closed beta. In the meantime, we finally got the final character, which will be in that eventual beta. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Alumio, it's great to have you here. I would love to have you back and get some more insight here, because
Sure.
you have some really really deep takes on these characters that I really appreciate, because also as a family dad existing in this realm of older legends alongside DVALIN and my fellow family dads, gamer dads out there. We just don't have the time to dig into this stuff like you do. Well, sorry, that sounds like I'm just painting you in the picture that you just have all the time in the world to do this stuff. That's not the point. We don't have the passion and the drive anymore. It's just been sucked out of us from the lives we've lived to, go in there and deep dive this stuff like you do. But it's really appreciated. It's been great to have you. I would love to have you back and talk about more of this stuff, especially because my main interest, and I've said this before, outside of crafting in the game, which DVALIN always makes fun of me about, is the arenas and the battlegrounds and the competitive side of that, and kicking off a competitive scene and getting organized action going for that. And I think there's definitely some potential of talking some analytical stuff when it comes to the competitive play that comes out of this community. So that's definitely something that I would love to talk with you more about in the future. But in the meantime, that's been episode 12. I can't wait to get to the lucky episode 13 and see where that takes us, because I don't know what's next for news for this game. I'm hoping it's news of the closed beta. So that would be a pretty awesome episode 13 to talk about. In the meantime, I've been BOAST here with Alumio and DVALIN. DVALIN, always a pleasure to have you as well. This has been CORECAST episode 12, all about the dwarf, the mercenary, and the classes and specializations that we've seen so far, and Alumio's dream class, which in itself needs to make it into the game. So excited to see what comes out of all of this, excited to see what happens with Corepunk. Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to the next one. We'll see you next time for CORECAST, the Corepunk podcast.